So, hello again. It's good to see you. Not that I can actually, physically. I feel like there's a spider in my hair. Anyway, it's good to be back. I want to finish this build today, if I can. In its current configuration, it works great, except most of the heat goes straight up, and I'm heating the roof space of the shed. To get more out of the heat, we're going to put a chamber here. That's going to get hot, and that's just going to radiate the heat out. I'm also going to plumb it into the shed so that during the warm-up period, when it actually is producing a bit of smoke, it can just shoot that away, not into the building, because it was not too bad. This is a fairly open shed, but it was enough that it was annoying. A few other questions you guys had, and that was to do with the basic layout of the stove itself. Probably the strangest and obvious thing that I point out is the angle of this part of the burn chamber, how it's angled up. Hot air rises, we all know that. Initially, what I've seen with these stoves is if this part of the burn chamber is like 90 degrees to the riser, the fire can want to start coming up through the feeder here, through the hopper, and it's just heading in the wrong direction. So you end up with a fire here, smoke coming inside. It's a pain in the butt. So this angle up ensures that the first movement of air is going to travel up and out in the direction that I wanted. Once that hot air gets into this part of the riser, there is enough force. It's passive, but there's enough force behind it that it'll go where I want it to go, which will be into the chamber, the heating chamber, and then eventually out through the wall and up a bit of a chimney, flue, riser, whatever you want to call it. I also want somewhere to put a teapot so I can boil a billy while I'm out here in the workshop, because I like a good cup of tea. Heck, I like coffee, any hot beverage, it's good. What else was there? Many of you eagle-eyed viewers noticed that there is a slit behind here, and there are also two openings down lower below the hopper. The two below the hopper were a design feature. I had that in mind when I was building this. The one back here was actually a screw-up. I didn't account for the thickness, for a thickness somewhere along the way, and after cutting it out and putting it in a position, there's a hole there. And I was going to weld it up, but then I looked at it and I went, you know what? That's probably going to be beneficial if I ever want to run a cap on the hopper. So I'm really happy that's there. That's sort of important. That's only a 5mm slip, but it's enough. It's enough to let air in. Apart from that, it's worked really well. It feeds, it needs very little intervention, which is nice for a stove that you want to be just running continuously. This is designed to run continuously, to be able to just feed and feed and feed. And even with a bit of care, you could open the ash door and clear the ash while it was running into a bucket or something, if you were that desperate. In its current configuration, I would add another foot onto this riser if you weren't going to put the heat chamber up the top. It needs that little bit of extra length just to really hum. All right, I think that's enough yakking. Let's get on with this. For the heating chamber, I went with these old truck brake drums. These are off an International Prime Mover. It was an old girl that we had kicking around as a yard truck at my old workplace. And basically, these are almost the perfect size and material for this job. Cast iron is very good at retaining heat, but it is very hard to weld. But this is a weldable cast iron, and how you can tell that is that the top half has been made out of a pressed piece of steel and welded to the cast bottom. And so if you see those features, you will know immediately that that is weldable cast iron. If it is one lump solid cast piece, well, that brake drum will not be easily weldable, and it should be avoided. Though if that's all you have, you could use that. You would just need to join all these together with nuts and bolts. call it a drum brake. This is the bottom half of the heating chamber, and it will require a hole cut in it to allow the hot air to escape and go up the flue. Really easy way to mark this is get yourself some engineer's chalk. This stuff is really invaluable if you're working with metal a lot. Because it's a nice flat surface, you can hold that up against the edge of whatever you're trying to cut out and slowly work your way around. Bottom. And yeah. So the tool I'm using at the moment is a 9-inch grinder, and fun fact, or not so fun, they are responsible for more deaths and injuries in the workplace than any other handheld power tool. So please keep that in mind, that if you're going to use a tool like this or any other grinder, you really need to know what you're doing, and you need to have had adequate training and experience before sort of picking up one of these, because they will hurt you, or worse, if you don't treat them with respect or know how to handle them. Well, that looks pretty good. With the heating drum more or less complete, now we just need a way to hold it onto the rocket stove. So I, after a bit of thought, came up with this flange idea, which was ridiculously tight and needed to be tapped all the way home. But anyway, tolerances, people. It just needed to be fully welded on so that it was, one, strong enough to support the weight of those heavy brake drums, and two, it really needed to be gas tight. I didn't want any smoke or air being released out the bottom, so I did a few extra runs of weld around just to really make sure that it was, one, strong enough, and two, airtight. With the drum now fitted, all I need to do is get it in position and fully weld around the inside to make the whole system airtight. To stop long pieces of wood from snagging in the hopper, I've made this nice extension piece. It didn't need to be sort of flanged out the way it was. It would have worked just as fine had it been straight, but I was sort of going for a bit of flair and style and design, and, you know, I couldn't help myself. With all the basic features on now, I sort of wanted to get a feel for how it was going to look and sit in the place where I wanted it. I'm happy I didn't make it any larger, otherwise it just wouldn't have fit in that area.
It bringeth juice.
Oh, thank you. What's in this one?
Mango, orange juice, carrot, and apple.
Mango, orange juice,
Carrot,
carrot,
and
apple. Mango, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I have already mixed it, and half was for John.
Oh, well, oh, half of it's for... Oh, Johnny isn't even working over here today.
John, I brought you juice, and he's trying to drink it.
He's gone. He's like a blister, always shows up after the work's done. I'm kidding.
She likes it too.
She likes juice.
She likes it.
She does. She's not a fussy bubber at all.
Oh, wow. Hey, look, you're staining your suit. No, that's right. No,
1 year old now?
yeah.
My, the time flies.
Yes, indeed.
Pardon me, good juice. So I've cut out this baffle, and the idea being is that I don't want the air to take the path of least resistance and just come up the back and go straight on out. I'd like it to sort of flow around a bit more. So hopefully this baffle will encourage the airflow to come down and sort of go either side. It's probably going to just pick one side and go that way, but it'll, yeah. I'm hoping that'll make a little bit of difference. You don't want to see that. It's bad. So there is a good hand width of gap between the bottom of that and the top of the riser in there. That's to give adequate airflow to be able to flow around. A mistake I see made fairly often is they don't maintain a big enough gap between the top of the riser and the top of this heating chamber. As a rule of thumb, I like to keep the distance the same as the diameter, the tube, or whatever you're making it out of. That's your minimum distance between the top of your riser to there. Should be the same size or diameter as the internal riser. That's my thoughts on the matter. I filled up my SD card and didn't realise it, so you don't get to see me weld this out. My apologies. Quick test with an oily rag and some paper, and we are drawing. It's good to get this job done just in time for summer. Oh. So as a practical test, I wanted to see how long a hopper's worth of fuel would last. And so I chopped up some rough sawn pine from a pallet and just let it go. And basically it went for an hour and 15 minutes. I did have to play with it occasionally, as you can see. And that's only because of those rough chunks didn't really want to feed well. This is where a straight hopper perhaps would have done a better job. But if I use straight pieces of pallet pine, it feeds automatically just fine and there's no issues at all. So my final thoughts on the stove is I really like it. I like the look, I like how it functions, and that I can pretty much load it up and I don't have to worry about it for a good hour before coming back and checking on it. The finish that you saw on the brake drums was an oil finish. Basically, once it was all cleaned off with the wire wheel and got hot, I rubbed it all over with vegetable oil. And basically, if you like, when the metal's hot, the pores of the metal open and it sort of sucks in all that oil. And when it cools down, it sort of seals it up again. And you're left with this very durable finish that is heat resistant enough for what it is. Once it's sort of baked on, it's pretty good. It's kind of like, if you could imagine the stuff that builds up on the inside of your oven. You know, that stuff's pretty hard to get off, and it just looks good and it's very durable. The rest of the stove I will paint with potbelly black and to sort of prolong its life. Another thought that I had was that if you couldn't find those brake drums that I used, if you were going to build this yourself, I would recommend a 44 or 55 gallon steel drum. Perhaps even the internals of an old hot water system would also be adequate. Obviously, the thicker it is, the better. Though you could use full cast iron drums, you would just not be able to weld it. You would have to sort of bolt it all together and use flanges, which wouldn't be too bad. But cast iron really is the way to go, as it holds the heat for a long time. So it's finished. Hooray! I'm really liking this. I like how it runs. I really like the look and the feel. That oil finish on the brake drums just looks great, and I think I'll keep you posted on how well that lasts. I will reapply oil periodically, which is really not hard to do. It's just nice to have a different contrast between the two different sections. And if you're wondering, I am drawing up plans that will be for sale on my website, and I want to keep them inexpensive and detailed so that anyone out there who wants to build this for themselves, they can just go ahead and do it. I unfortunately do not have the capacity to take on building bigger projects like this at the moment. I've already got a lot of stuff happening, stuff that's sort of proprietary, and I can't really share it with you, but I'm doing work with other people, other engineers, and life is good. I'm really appreciating the work, but I can't put another stove in the mix right now. There is some new stuff coming out, so I'll keep you posted, some upgrades to some old stoves and different things, but I can't build this one for you. So I've already had a few people ask, and I've just had to say, look, I wish I could, but I can't. I just can't at the moment. Not without breaking my promise and word to other people that I've already committed to do stuff for. So, but the plans will be available. They'll be on our website. I want to keep them inexpensive. And if you're interested, there'll be a link in the description that'll take you there. If you would like to build this, or take the plans to someone you know who can weld, and maybe bribe them with some beer money and get them to build it for you. So as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.